الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على الرؤوس رحمة العالمين سيدنا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So we continue reading from تدريب السالك إلى قراءة أقرب المسالك في مذهب الإمام مالك in Maliki jurisprudence, and we still remain in the chapters dealing with the prayer. And last time when we had left off, we had discussed the particulars of praying in a group or salat al-jama'ah, congregational prayer, and we are still in that particular chapter, fi salat al-jama'ah. We had begun it, and we had mentioned that it is a strong sunnah to pray in a congregational prayer for those who complete the conditions. And in Jum'ah, the congregation is obligatory or wajib. When we get to the chapter on Jum'ah, we'll go, or Friday prayer, we'll go over that in a little more detail. So there are certain conditions to what they say, sahhat al-iqtida, or in terms of following. So that's where we left off, where the author says, rahimahullah, وشرط صحة الاقتداء نيته والمساواة في عين الصلاة وصفتها فلا يصح اقتداء قاض بمؤد ولا عكسه ولا أن يقضي ظهر الأحد خلف من يقضي ظهر السبت. So الاقتداء, same meaning as al-ma'mumiyya, which is to be a ma'mum or a muqtadi, the one who is following the imam in a congregational prayer. So there are certain conditions for it to be valid, not the prayer itself, in addition to the conditions of validity for the prayer that are expected, that we already went over, including tahara and facing the qibla and so forth. Here, these specific conditions of validity are for joining the congregation, the jama'ah. So the first one he mentions is a niyyah, or the intention. So if you're going to join a congregational prayer, salat al-jama'ah, then when you say, or at the time, or right before the time of takbirat al-ihram, Allahu Akbar, then you make an intention that you are joining behind the imam. You're praying behind this particular imam that is in front of you. If there are multiple jama'ahs going on, which is a rare occurrence, but sometimes in places like in airports and things like that, there are multiple congregational prayers going on, then you have to make very specific your intention that you're praying behind this particular imam that you make the intention for. وَالْمُسَاوَاةُ فِي عَيْنِ الصَّلَاةِ وَصِفَتِهَا. Here musawa means uniformity in the specific prayer and in its attribute. So here specific prayer, it means like he's praying dhuhr, the imam, then I make intention to pray dhuhr behind him. He's praying asr, then I make the intention to pray asr behind him. If I have not prayed the dhuhr prayer yet, say I'm a traveler and I find the imam is praying asr, in the Maliki school, can I then go and intend I am praying dhuhr and I'm praying asr, I am praying dhuhr and he's praying asr? It's not valid. Unlike in other schools like the Shafi'i school. So in the Maliki school, al-musawa fi ayn as-salah, it has to be the exact same prayer, and it's sifa and its attribute. And what this means is that it should be a prayer that is falling within its time, yani hadira, has to be behind someone who's always has the same intention. I can't intend yesterday's dhuhr if I missed it behind an imam who's praying today's dhuhr. And this is what he means here with the next lines. فَلَا يَصِحُ اِقْتِدَاءُ قَادٍ بِمُؤَدٍ وَلَا عَكْسُهُ. So someone who's making qada, who's making up a prayer, cannot pray behind someone who's praying the prayer on time. And vice versa. Someone who's making up a prayer, I can't pray behind someone who's, if I'm doing it on time and he's making up a prayer. وَلَا أَنْ يَقْضِيَ ظُهْرَ الْأَحَدْ خَلْفَ مَنْ يَقْضِي ظُهْرَ السَّبْتِ. Or even if they're both qada, but he's making up the Thursday dhuhr prayer and I'm making up the Saturday dhuhr prayer, then we cannot, or Saturday and Sunday as example here, we cannot pray behind each other. So that's something that's a little bit strict in the Maliki school, and he based it upon the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in the majority Imam لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ فَلَا تَخْتَلِفُوا عَلَيْهِ. So the Imam has been made, or has been raised, or put in his place so that he may be followed. So Imam Malik took that to mean followed in everything. So it has to be Ayn as-Salah wa Sifat as-Salah, the exact same prayer and the exact type of prayer, whether it's qada or it's a make-up prayer or it's a prayer that's being prayed on time. وعدم نقص الإمام في القدرة على الأركان عن المأموم. The second condition for it to be valid is, here he says, عدم نقص الإمام في القدرة عن الأركان عن المأموم. That the Imam should not have less capacity or ability to do the arkan, the essentials of the prayer, in a manner less than the one who is praying behind him. So let's say I see an Imam and I join late, and or maybe he's not an Imam, he could be praying by himself, but he's praying sitting down on a chair. And he prays standing up for Fatiha and the Surah, but then he can't do the ruku' and the sujood, so he prays sitting down. And I can do both. What do I do? Am I allowed to have him as my Imam? You are not in the Maliki school. Why? Because you have more of a qudra, as he says here. There's a naqs, an Imam, fil qudra an al-arkan an al-ma'mum. So that means someone who's going to lead the prayer, or congregational prayer, then he should have, if he's able to do all of the arkan, then he should be leading it. Let's say we both can't do ruku' and sujood. He doesn't mention it here, but in this case, I can pray behind him because he doesn't have more of a capacity. We're equal. But if I have more of the capacity, then he cannot be leading me. They did not include in this things like blindness, for example, because blindness does not render you incapable of doing any of the arkan, any of the essentials of the prayer. You can still do all of them. So it's really talking more about the physical aspect, able to go down to the bowing and the prostration, the ruku' and the sujood and the sitting and so forth. And that's the essentials. If he can't sit jalsat al-tawarruk, and he can't put the exact sitting of the thigh and the right glute on the floor like the Maliki stipulate, that's okay, that's not an essential, this is hay'ah. But we're talking about things of the essentials, namely ruku', sujood, qiyam, those things. Another condition, وعدم سبقه أو مساواته في الإحرام والسلام. وسبقه في غيرهما حرام ولا يبطل إن أخذ فرضه مع الإمام. So this one, عدم سبقه أو مساواته في الإحرام والسلام. Those two specifically. So preceding the Imam, or starting at the same time, or doing it at the same time, of two things, two essentials of the prayer. Al-Ihram, which is Takbirat al-Ihram. So if I say Allahu Akbar before the Imam does, how can I possibly be following him? Because he hasn't started yet. So that would be a contravening the idea that you're following the Imam. Or I say the salam before he does. I exit the prayer before he does. So he's still in the shahwat, and I say assalamu alaikum. Well, I just invalidated my prayer because I have to be following the Imam in this case. Or musawa. Musawa means doing it at the same time. So we both say at the same time, Allahu Akbar, like we hear it like it's one voice. It's the same thing as saying as beforehand. And the same thing with the salam at the end. I have to wait for the Imam to say assalamu alaikum. Then I follow. I should not precede him. وسبقه في غيرهما حرام ولكن غير مبطل. He doesn't say that. ولا يبطل. However, if I precede him in something other than those things, like inside the prayer, it's not invalidating of the prayer, but you've done kind of a contravention. You've done a haram. So if I go into ruku' before he does, or I go into sujood before he does, or I come back up from ruku' before he does, then all of those things are haram. If you do it obviously purposefully and willfully, but let's say you're many rows behind the Imam and you didn't hear him, and you think he actually went up and maybe he didn't, that's something else. But here, if you purposefully do that, then that would be haram. ولا يبطل إن أخذ فرضه مع الإمام. And it doesn't invalidate if you capture the fard part of that essential. So let's say you completely did the ruku' outside of the imam. You can go back and catch him, right? You're in the ruku', like, oh my God, he's still standing up. He didn't go into ruku' yet. Then you go back to the qiyam and you go back to ruku'. Wala hajat alik. But if you precede him so much that you do not actually participate with him in that particular essential, hada mubtil, then that would invalidate the particular prayer. So those are the shurut al-sihha al-iqtida, the validity of following the imam. I don't see that he mentions here, even though it's mentioned in the Sharh al-Kabir. Which is, it is valid for the traveler to pray behind the one who is not traveling, and for the non-traveler to pray by the one who is traveling. This might come up in the chapter about the traveler's prayer. In other words, Salat al-Qasr. So you may be praying only 2 rak'ahs, you may be praying 4, but it is valid in the Maliki madhab for either of them to follow the other one. However, if the traveler does follow the resident and he's praying 4, then you have to pray 4. You can't pray 2. You don't exit in the middle of the prayer. Like we said, you can't give the salam before he does. So you just pray it as a 4 rak'ah prayer. But as long as it's dhuhr, following dhuhr behind the dhuhr of the day, and asr behind the asr of the day, and so forth. Next he says, a separate rule, talking about jama'ah, or talking about the imam, al-ratib, the designated imam, or the salaried imam, or the regular imam. الإمام الراتب كجماعة تعاد معه الصلاة للفضيلة وليعيدها لذلك وله أن يجمع ليلة المطر وحده. So the Imam al-Ratib, who is the regular imam, in other words, he doesn't necessarily have to take salary out of it, but he's someone that is designated by the congregation, by the jama'ah, by whatever particular authority or legitimated by whatever group that is there. This is our imam. He is like a jama'ah. So if nobody comes to show up for prayer in the masjid, it's like he's praying jama'ah. He's getting the reward of jama'ah. And also the rules of the congregation apply to him. So he says, Imam al-Ratib ka jama'atin tu'adu ma'ahu as-salah lil-fadila. So as we mentioned in a previous session, you can repeat the prayer if you pray by yourself, and you can repeat it in a jama'ah. So if you only find the imam, then he constitutes the jama'ah. So you can repeat it with him. وَلِيُعِيدُهَا لِذَلِكَ. But he is not to repeat it. If he's already prayed his prayer as the imam, and he then later on there's a jama'ah, well, he's done his jama'ah because he is the jama'ah, he is the congregation in that particular instance. وَلَهُ أَنْ يَجْمَعَ لَيْلَةَ الْمَطْرِ وَحْدَهُ. This is a separate ruling that will come up later, but under certain conditions, Maghrib and Isha can be combined in a masjid on a dark night where there is rain and the road is difficult to traverse. In this case, the stipulation for that is that there has to be a congregation, a jama'ah, to do that. But if only the imam is there and no one else showed up, he can do it by himself, and it counts as the jama'ah. ويحرم ابتداء صلاة بعد الإقامة للراتب وإن أقيمت على مصل قطع إن خشي فوات ركعة وإلا أتم النافلة مقتصرا على فرائضها وفي الفرض تفصيل يطلب من المطولات. And it is haram to begin a new prayer after the iqamah has been called for the Imam al-Ratib. So you're in the masjid, they say قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, and you just walk in and you're about to start your nafilah, which is a sunnah prayer and not something that's fard. It would be haram in this instance if it's Imam Ratib, right, the designated Imam or the designated congregation. When uqimat al musallin qata in khashya fawat rak'ah. If you're in the middle of praying and they make the iqamah, then you can continue in that prayer as long as you don't fear you will miss an entire unit or rak'ah of the fard prayer, the congregational prayer that has just begun. Otherwise, if you feel you're going to miss it, qata. Qata means you leave the prayer, the sunnah prayer, and you go to the fard prayer if you're going to miss a rak'ah of it. وإلا أتم النافلة مقتصرا على فرائضها. Otherwise, if you don't feel you're going to miss a rak'ah, then you finish your nafilah, you finish your voluntary prayer, only doing the fara'id, like not reading a surah or read something very short, so that you can make the fard, the jama'ah prayer. وفي الفرض تفصيل يطلب من المطولات. However, if you're praying a fard prayer and then another fard prayer, the iqamah is made, he said there's some tafsil that you can read about in al-mutawwalat, which is the longer books of fiqh. That's going to go back to how much time is left. If you're going to be able to do it on time, or it's going to be qada. Also in the Maliki school, we have this idea of tartib. So you have to pray, if it's 5 prayers or less, you have to pray them in order. In other words, if you don't have 5 makeups, if you have less than 5 makeups, then they have to be prayed in order, even if you miss al-hadira, even if you miss the one that's going on right in there. So that's some of the tafsil. I don't want to go too much into it now. We're just going to stick to what's here. But otherwise, if you're praying a sunnah prayer, then you go by the rules that we just mentioned in terms of whether to continue in your prayer or to cut it off if you fear you're going to miss a rak'ah of the congregational prayer. وَتُكْرَهُ, now here is things that are disliked. إمامة أعربي وذي سلس أو قروح إلا لمثله وأغلف ومجهول حال. Here it's talking about whose imamate is disliked, not haram, but it's better to have someone other than this person. Here he says إمامة أعربي للحضر. So someone who's from the countryside or from a Bedouin environment to lead al-hadari, to lead someone who is a resident, and vice versa. وذي سلس أو قروح, or someone who has incontinence or quruh, or has open sores, إلا لمثله, except if he's leading someone in a similar state as him. وأغلف ومجهول حال. أغلف means someone who's not circumcised, and مجهول حال means someone you don't know, someone who's a newcomer, you don't know who they are. You don't know do they know the salah, they don't know the salah, where did they come from, these sorts of things. So none of these are haram, but it is makruh. Why is it makruh? Generally in all of these, if people in the congregation recognize and see these things in the person, they may have something in their heart and they don't want to pray behind them. So it's not because there's something wrong with these people. Majhul hal, we don't know who he is. He could be, wali min al-awliya, except the congregation doesn't know him. They haven't been exposed to him. But in order for them to concentrate on their prayer, not concentrate and think about, well, who's this imam who's leading us that we don't know, this is to avoid that particular situation. وَالتَّرَطُّ بِخَصِيٍّ أَوْ عَبْدٍ فِي فَرْضٍ أَوْ سُنَّةٍ, and also to have as an imam ratib, not as just an imam, but imam ratib, a designated imam, someone who is a bondsman or has been castrated, either in a fard or in a sunnah. And again, similar reason. So they can lead. Obviously, we don't have the situation anymore, but there was a time in the pre-modern world where you'd have quite a number of these type of individuals. And again, it was more about societal dynamics rather than a case of superiority or inferiority. So looking at the disposition of the congregation and how they might possibly feel about someone like that leading the prayer. And it's not mentioned here, but even someone, there's nothing particularly wrong with them, but the jama'ah, the congregation doesn't like him. It's dislike for him to lead the prayer. And there may be nothing wrong with him. In fact, he may be the best one out of the whole group. But again, it's to protect the integrity of the jama'ah, the congregation, and not to cause any undue fitna or strife. وتبطل صلاة المأموم ببطلان صلاة الإمام إلا في مسائل. So the general principle here he's stating is that the prayer of the follower will be invalidated with the invalidation of the prayer of the imam. So if the imam does something to invalidate his prayer, then it's going to apply to everybody else behind him too. إلا في مسائل, except in certain situations. What are these situations? منها سبق الحدث ونسيانه وذكر النجاسة في محموله أو بدنه أو سهو عن سجدة فسبح له ولم يرجع فسجدها المأموم النفسي وتركه القبلي المترتبة عن 3 سنن فسجده المؤتم. So what are these situations? Including amongst them, sabq al-hadath, which means He's praying the Imam and he loses his wudu. He passes gas, whatever. That in and of itself doesn't invalidate the prayer of the people behind him, because there's something you can do about it, which is the next chapter called istikhlaf, which is to assign a khalifa or someone who's going to take over the imamate of the prayer. And if he does that while he's still in the rak'ah, or in the essential, like if it happens when he goes down for ruku', and then he says, Fulan, come be imam, I gotta go. Or you be imam. And then the person behind him then says, Sami Allahu Hamida, and the people follow him, then the prayer is valid, and the imam goes and renews his wudu, and he can join back in. But not as imam. So, Sabq al-Hadath wa nisyanuhu, or he's in the middle of his prayer and he remembers, wait a minute, do I have wudu? I don't remember if I made wudu. Or I don't remember which came first. Did I lose my wudu or did I make wudu? The same thing would happen in someone praying by themselves. So if he recalls this while he's in the prayer, then he is to do the same thing. He can leave the prayer and assign someone else to be the imam. وذكر النجاسة في محموله أو بدنه. Or if he remembers, he recalls after he wasn't cognizant of it, there's some najasa on his clothes. He's, wait a minute, which thawb am I wearing? Is that the one that had the najasa from yesterday? Oh, it is. I didn't realize that. So then also he could leave the prayer and the people behind him can join him. أو سهو عن سجدة فسبح له ولم يرجع فسجدها المأموم لنفسه. Or he forgot to do a sajda, one of the two, and the people behind him said Subhanallah, but he didn't go back. He wasn't convinced. فسبح له ولم يرجع فسجدها المأموم لنفسه. But the ones following him, they did the sajda. Their prayer is valid, because they did the sajda even though the imam didn't do it. وتركه القبلي المترتب عن 3 سنن فسجده المؤتم. Or he didn't do the sujood al-sahu, the prostration of forgetfulness, al-qabli, the one that comes before the salam, so it's from the prayer, not outside of the prayer, as one over before. And 3 sunan, for 3 sunnahs or more, which is now wajib, it's obligatory to do that. And he didn't do it, but they did it, then their prayer is valid. And his prayer is valid too, because he wasn't convinced that he actually made that mistake. Allahu a'lam. وجاز, and it's permissible, إمامة أعمى ومخالف بالفروع وصبي بمثله. So there's no karaha, there's no reprehensibility or dislike for, as I said earlier, someone who is blind to lead the prayer. ومخالف في الفروع, or someone who is of a different madhab, that's mukhalif fil furu', so someone who's Shafi'i or Hanafi or Hanbali, as long as they're following their school, or as long as they are following a valid prayer that is valid in any of the 4 schools, even though if they don't call themselves Hanbali or Hanafi or Maliki or Shafi'i, that's okay. But as long as the way that they're praying is valid in any other schools, that is permissible for them to be imam. So we don't have this sort of idea, oh, we're Maliki, so we should only pray behind Malikis, or it's preferred or anything. That's not true. So as long as it's valid in their school, then it's okay. وَصَبِيٍّ بِمِثْلِهِ, and a young child, a young boy who hasn't reached puberty yet, he can lead someone like himself, a young boy, but he can't lead adults because he's not baligh, he's not of age, so he can't be the imam for people who are. وفصل مأموم بنهر صغير أو طريق. وعلو مأموم لا إمام فيكره له إلا بكشبر أو لضرورة أو مشاركة البعض وقصد الكبر مبطل. So also permissible, فصل مأموم بنهر صغير أو طريق. If there is a space between the imam and the congregation with something like a small river, is what he says here. Right? In other words, not something you can easily traverse. So the imam got on the other side of the river and Maghrib is 3 minutes away and they didn't pray Asr yet, and they said, okay, I'm just going to be on this side, I'll say Allahu Akbar, you guys follow me, and they're on the other side of the river, or the small river. That's okay, because if by the time they get to cross, maybe it's too late and they want to pray Jama'ah, so it's fine for the Imam to be on that side and everybody else to be over on this side. Aw tariq, or a small carriageway or pathway or street or something like that. The important thing is that they can follow him. They can see him or they can hear him. Or both, preferably. They can see him or they can hear him. However, in today's world where some people have asked the question, well, let's say, I'm in a closed room, or I'm even in a completely different place, and then there's Imam on TV. Can I follow him? Like people living in Mecca, for example, and the Salah is going on in the Haram, and I don't see him. I only see him by video screen, and there's streets and hotels and all sorts of things between me and the Imam. Can I follow him in that way? Which actually goes on today in places like Mecca. Is that valid or not? This I have to say, Allah A'lam. I don't know about that. Because you can't see and you can't hear. And the video doesn't really necessarily render that different. So to get out of that, preferably, it's better to at least be amongst the lines, right? When you get to the Saha of the Haram, in Mecca at least, that you're connected, and then even if you don't see the Imam, but you're hearing him directly from the loudspeaker, right? And he's there. However, for some people, it's very difficult to get to the Haram, especially people who are infirm and elderly, and it's easier for them if they are hearing the same loudspeaker as everybody else, and they're following, للضرورة أحكام. Things that are necessary, there's certain rules for it. I wouldn't make too much a big deal about it. But if it's out of just sheer laziness and just convenience, then, I have to think about, you're not actually in the Haram. You're in the Hilton, or you're in the Hyatt, and you're not actually, it's better to be as close as you can. Wallahu a'lam. لا إمام فيكره له. If the ma'mumin are in a higher ground or level than the Imam, this is permissible. If the Imam is in a higher ground, this is makruh, because it has the illusion that we're raising the Imam higher than everybody else. And that's not a concept in the deen in that way. He is there for us to follow, but not to put him on a pedestal, not a literal pedestal. فيكره, that's why it's disliked. إلا بكشبر أو لضرورة مشاركة البعض. Unless it's like shibr, which is like, a hand's length or something like that. Not too much higher, maybe it's a stage or something, a low stage. If it's necessary. وقصد الكبر مبطل. However, if we do it with the intention, oh no, this is the Imam, we have to put him up in a high place, and that's kibr, that's arrogance, then this is mubtil, this invalidates the prayer, according to Imam Malik. Imam wal ma'mum, for both parties. ولا يشترط نية الإمامة إلا في أربعة. When does the Imam have the intention to be Imam? Only in 4 instances. صلاة الخوف والاستخلاف والجمعة والجمع للمطر. So, صلاة الخوف, which is, and these are all prayers that are only valid if done in congregation. So that's the general principle. If the prayer is not valid except if it's done in congregation, then you have to have the intention of the Imam. So Salat al-Khawf, or the fear prayer, this is done more or less when there is fear from an enemy or on the battlefield or something of that sort, where you kind of divide into 2 groups. So one group is watching and one group is praying, and then they switch, but the Imam stays in his place. So that Imam has to have the intention, the niyyah, that he's the Imam. So he can't just say Allahu Akbar, he's praying by himself, and then the groups decide, oh, we're going to do the fear prayer behind him. From the beginning, he has to have that intention. Istikhlaf, as we said, is when the Imam assigns somebody else because he has to leave the prayer. And he may leave the prayer for a number of reasons, not only just because he remembered he lost his wudu. Maybe he sees some dangerous situation. Maybe he remembered he left the stove on, whatever. So in that case, he leaves and he assigns someone else, but the person he assigns then has to make his intention that they're the Imam. Wal-Jum'ah, and the Friday prayer, because the Friday prayer, there's no Friday prayer but with one person. Friday prayer is only valid by congregation, by Jama'ah, so he has to have the intention that he is the Imam. Wal-Jam'i lil-Matar, and as we said earlier, combining prayers, namely Maghrib and Isha, in a dark night when the roads are difficult to walk or to travel upon. The Imam also has to have the intention during both of those prayers that he is an Imam and praying the Jama'ah, combining prayers. وَنُدِبَ, and it's recommended, now here we're talking about who should be the Imam, or it's recommended that they be the Imam. تَقْدِيمُ السُّلْطَان, so someone who's in a political authority, assuming we have a Muslim political authority, then they have the most right to be the Imam when they're passing through. فَرَبِّ الْمَنْزِلِ, someone whose house it is, so if you're praying in somebody's house, then that person has the most right. وَالْمُسْتَأْجِرُ أَحَقُّ مِنْ, however, if he's renting that house to someone, then the renter has more right, because the renter, as the fuqaha say, يَمْلِكِ الْمَنْفَعَةِ, he owns the use of the place. He doesn't own the place, he owns the use of the place. So that takes precedence over the person who has rented him or given him a lease to own the use of the place. So he has more right to lead the prayer. وَالْأَعْرَفُ يُقَدَّمُ عَلَى غَيْرِهِ كَالْوَرَعِ وَالزَّاهِدِ. يعني أعرف بأحكام الصلاة. So al-A'raf means the one who is more knowledgeable in the rules or the fiqh of the prayer has more right to lead the prayer than others. يُقَدَّمُ عَلَى غَيْرِهِ, and that includes someone who recites nicer than he does or has more Quran memorized, even though those are legitimate reasons for someone to lead the prayer. But the one who has the more right, يُقَدَّم, يُنْدَب, it's mandub, the one who knows more about the ahkam of the prayer. كَالْوَرَعِ وَالزَّاهِدِ, also, if he has wara', if he has scrupulousness, or zuhud, renunciation of the dunya, then that person also is recommended if those attributes are within any of the ones that we mentioned. وَنُدِبَ, and it's permissible or recommended, وقوف ذكر ولو صبي عن يمينه متأخرا قليلا ووقوف الاثنين فأكثر خلفه والنساء خلف الجميع. And it's recommended that if the Imam is leading the prayer and there's only one person behind him, that he stands behind him somewhat to the right and a little bit behind him. ولو صبيا, even if it's a young boy. متأخرا قليلا, back a little bit, maybe like a step. ووقوف الاثنين فأكثر خلفه, and then two or more people to be directly behind the Imam. والنساء خلف الجميع, and the women behind everybody else. ما هذا الحكم مندوب, it's recommended. So it's not haram or invalidates the prayer if it's not that order. So the Maliki school, actually, you can have even a congregation of women standing before the Imam and the Imam behind them. It's valid, but it's not recommended. Why is that important? Because sometimes you get into situations. One time I was praying somewhere and it was on a rooftop, and it was just right after a majlis. We had some sort of inshad, and we had some sort of muhadarat and dhikr and so forth like that. And the women were actually, in terms of qibla, they were in front of us, and we were all on this side. And it was a large group, and it was a very small space. So 100 or more men here and 100 more women here, for us to switch places would have been very difficult. So we went with the Maliki position, and we had the Imam technically behind the women, and the women were in a different section. Even though we were directly behind them, they were off to the side a little bit. We can see them, but in terms of the qibla, they were a little bit in front of us. And that, according to the Maliki school, doesn't invalidate the prayer, but generally speaking, it's recommended the Imam first, the rows of men behind him, and then the rows of women behind him. ومن وجد الإمام راكعا كبر للإحرام ثم للركوع أو السجود وترك التكبير للإحرام مبطل. وإن وجده جالسا كبر للإحرام فقط. Here it's talking about in masbuq, someone who the prayer has already started and you want to make the rak'ah. So if you find the Imam in ruku'ah, and we know in order to make the rak'ah, you have to start doing your ruku'ah before the Imam comes completely back up. قبل الاعتدال. I'tidal means he's straight up. So if he's like 90% and you make it, you make it. So if you find him in this position, then what do you do? كبر للإحرام. You say Allahu Akbar standing up. Because from the conditions of the prayer is that Allahu Akbar to be al-ihram مع القيام. While you're standing, not Allahu Akbar and one takbirah, and while you're going to ruku'ah, هذا مبطل. That invalidates the prayer. So you say Allahu Akbar for takbirat al-ihram, then you say Allahu Akbar for the ruku'ah. Or the sujood, if you find him in sujood. وترك التكبير للإحرام مبطل. Right? So if you don't do takbirat al-ihram, it's mubtil, because that is from the essentials of the prayer. وإن وجده جالسا كبر للإحرام فقط. If you find him in the sitting position, either in the sitting after 2 or the sitting after 3 or 4, the last one, then you say Allahu Akbar and you go sitting down. Why don't you say Allahu Akbar again? Because you are only joining the Imam in that position because that's where he's at, not because it's your takbirah. So you wouldn't say it at that particular time. This is the tashahhud, the jalis, yeah. While he's doing the tashahhud, in his julus. Yeah, julus is tashahhud, correct. One thing also that should be mentioned at this point, if you're joining a prayer, one of the bid'ah that is big bid'ah that we see today everywhere is when someone gets into the masjid and they see them praying, then they wait to see where they're at. Like if they're in sujood, they're going to wait for the next rak'ah because they say, oh, well, I missed this rak'ah anyway. The adab, the etiquette is for you to join immediately, whatever position he is in. You join the Imam, especially if it's Imam Ratib. Especially if it's a designated salah, you join whatever position that he's in. Also from the adab is not to run to the saf. It's not, you see them and they're in ruku'ah or about to go in ruku'ah and you sprint from the back of the masjid. If you feel that you're not going to make it, you can do one of two things. Either you can stop somewhat short of the line and say Allahu Akbar and go into ruku'ah and then join them. You can move after that once you're inside the prayer, if it's a little bit. Or you can just wait. Just say, okay, I joined them when I joined them, and if I miss the rak'ah, I make it up. The Prophet ﷺ, he forbade when he heard people running behind when they're joining the prayer. He said, that which you have made it, and that which you do not, you make it up. But this is not from salah, this is sakina wa waqar. Right? You come to it in sakina and respect. Allahu a'lam. ويقوم للقضاء بتكبير إن جلس في ثانية أو أدرك دون ركعة وإلا فلا. This is the takmila, the completion of this issue. ويقوم للقضاء بتكبير إن جلس في. So when you're the masbuq, you've joined the prayer, now you're about to make up the rak'ahs you missed, and the Imam says Assalamu alaikum. What do you do? يقوم للقضاء بتكبير إن جلس في ثانية. In other words, the second rak'ah of the masbuq. So you caught him in the his last rak'ah, the fourth, for example, and then he says Assalamu alaikum. Well, you wouldn't say Allahu Akbar to go back up because that's your first, not your second. But if you caught him in the third, so you did pray the third and fourth with him, and then he said Assalamu alaikum, then you would say Allahu Akbar to get up, because now you've done your 2. And when you've done 2 in your prayer, you actually would say Allahu Akbar when you get up. So it depends upon where you are in terms of your acts, whether you're going to say Allahu Akbar to complete. If you forget and you say Allahu Akbar anyway, it's an extra takbirah. There's no sujood for that. It's only one, and it's not a big deal. But to be precise, this is how you would do it. So ويقوم للقضاء بتكبير إن جلس في ثانيته هو, his second rak'ah, the masbuq, the one who's caught it late, أو أدرك دون ركعة وإلا فلا. Or you caught less than a rak'ah, because then it's like you're starting the prayer amiss over again. So if you caught in the last rak'ah but after the ruku'ah, You didn't do any rak'ahs with him, so when he says Assalamu alaikum, you say Allahu Akbar like you're starting the prayer over again. وإلا فلا, otherwise you don't say it, as we mentioned. والمسبوق قاد في القراءة بان فيما سواها. This is the part that's a little confusing, or maybe confusing, especially for the Malikiyah, because they make a distinction, unlike other schools of thought. So in Masbuq, we say قاد في القراءة. You are making up, in terms of the things you recite, بان فيما سواها, but you are building that upon which you missed in terms of the movements. And he describes it here. So for example, إن فاتته 3 ركعات مثلا من العشاء قام بعد السلام الإمام وأتى بركعة فيها الفاتحة وسورة جهرا ثم جلس للتشهد فيها ثم قام وأتى بركعة فيها الفاتحة وسورة جهرا ولا يتشهد بل يقوم ويأتي بركعة بدون سورة ويتشهد فيها ثم يدعو ويسلم. So for example, if you missed 3 rak'ahs from Salat al-Isha, so you caught the Imam before his ruku'ah in the 4th rak'ah of Isha, so you have made 1. He says Assalamu alaikum. Now you're going to get up, and you're not going to say Allahu Akbar, because right, it's only 1. So you get up, you read the Fatiha, and you read a surah after the Fatiha, jahran, both of them. So you're going to read the Fatiha out loud, and you're going to read a surah after it out loud. So even though this is your 2nd rak'ah in terms of catching it with the Imam, but you're making qada of the one you missed, which is the 1st one, and the 2nd, and the 3rd. So you didn't catch the 1st rak'ah with him or the 2nd. What did he read in the 1st rak'ah? Fatiha and a surah. What did he read in the 2nd rak'ah? Fatiha and a surah. Tamam? So you read Fatiha and surah. Then you're going to do your ruku' or your sujood. Do you sit for tashahhud at this point? Yes. Because now you've done 2. We said banin fima siwaha. So in terms of building upon what came before, you've now done 2 rak'ahs, which are movements, so you sit for the tashahhud. You sit for the tashahhud, then you get up, you say Allahu Akbar. What do you read now? Al-Fatiha out loud, and a chapter, a surah out loud too. Why? Because even though this is your 3rd, right, or your 4th, you are making up from before, the 1st one. So you read the Fatiha and you read the surah. Then the last rak'ah you're going to do just Fatiha, because that's the 3rd rak'ah that you missed, but the 3rd rak'ah he only read the Fatiha. So you're going to read the Fatiha silently, and then you sit back down for the tashahhud. And that's basically what he described here. ثم يدعو ويسلم. ومن وجد الإمام في ركوع الأخيرة وخشي أن يرفع الإمام قبل وصوله إلى الصف أحرم حيث كان ثم دب إلى الصف إن قرب وإلا أتم مكانه. This is what we said earlier, that if you find the Imam in his ruku'ah and it looks like it's the last one, you might miss the whole prayer. وخشي أن يرفع الإمام قبل وصوله إلى الصف, and you're afraid that if you won't catch the Imam, if you go all the way to the line, then you pray, you make takbirat al-ihram wherever you are inside the masjid, you say Allahu Akbar, and then you try to make it with him. ثم دب إلى الصف إن قرب. If the line is close, if you're like 2 lines or 2 spaces behind, then you can walk up to it while you're in the prayer. Otherwise, if it's really far away, you're at the door of the masjid and he's all the way up front, then in this case you complete the prayer where you are. So in the Malikiyah, you can actually be in a line by yourself. It doesn't invalidate the prayer. We don't have that. But it's something to be avoided. ومن شك في إدراك ركعة مع الإمام ألغاها وقضاها. If you make the prayer and you're not sure, did I actually make it before the Imam came all the way back up, or I did not, you have shak, يعني مستوى الطرفين, يعني you're not sure which one, whether you did or didn't, then you assume you did not, and then you would not count that rak'ah, and you would make up according to that rak'ah as if it didn't happen. قضاها, mix it up. كمن أدرك الإمام في الركوع وكبر الإحرام حال انحطاطه فإنه لا يعتد بتلك الركعة والله أعلم. Just like someone who meets with the Imam in the ruku'ah, and he makes the takbirat al-ihram as he's going down, as we said earlier, as he's going down to make the ruku'ah. فإنه لا يعتد بتلك الركعة, so that rak'ah doesn't count. Wallahu a'lam. And there's some khilaf, he says here, about whether the prayer is valid like that or not, even though technically he did takbirat al-ihram, but he did it while he was moving, not while he was standing. So the safer position is that it's batil. However, some of them said if you make takbirat al-ihram while, like you started off while you were standing, you said Allahu Akbar, but you started off while you were standing, then they say the prayer is valid, even though the rak'ah, the unit itself of prayer, is invalid. So I'm going to also read it istikhlaf because it kind of goes with it, and we'll stop there. This is when the Imam assigns a new Imam. فصل في الاستخلاف في الصلاة. So istikhlaf means to make a khalifa, to assign someone to be the new Imam. قال رحمه الله: إذا تذكر الإمام أن بثوبه نجاسة أو بدنه أو تذكر الحدث أو سبقه القطع واستخلف رجل من الجماعة بشرط صلاحيته للإمامة وإدراك جزءا يعتد به من الركعة قبل الاستخلاف وإن بركوع أو سجود. So if the Imam remembers some najasa on his clothes or on his person, as we mentioned in the last chapter, or remembers that they lost their wudu before they got into the prayer, or they lose their wudu while they're in the prayer, qata'. Qata' means they can't continue to be the Imam, obviously, because their prayer is invalid. وَاسْتَخْلَفَ رَجُلٌ مِنَ الْجَمَاعَةِ, but he can make istikhlaf, he can take someone behind him from the Jama'ah who will be the new Imam. That's why it's important for those who are praying directly right behind the Imam to be those people who are capable of being Imam. So I know oftentimes people like to encourage young boys and things, but young boys should not be standing directly behind the Imam if there are men in the congregation. They should be in the second row, they should be sort of atraf at the ends, not directly behind the Imam. So استخلف رجل من الجماعة بشرط, what are the conditions for this istikhlaf? بشرط صلاحيته للإمامة, that person behind him has to be the conditions of Imam, so it has to be a man, obviously. وإدراكه جزءا يعتد به من الركعة, and also he had to be a proper ma'moom. In other words, he had to have caught, if he's masbuq, right, if he's someone who joined the prayer late, then he have to have joined at least one rak'ah. Because if he didn't, technically he's not a follower. So you can't be the Imam and you see someone walking down the street who hasn't prayed yet. Yeah, fulan ta'ala, lost my wudu, be Imam. He's not in the prayer. It has to be someone behind you who's in the prayer. So he has to have made one rak'ah with you. So إدراك جزءا يعتد به من الركعة قبل الاستخلاف, that's important. وإن بركوع أو سجود, right? وإن بركوع, even if he caught you in the ruku' or the sujud, but he made that part with you. ولا تبطل إن رفعوا برفعه قبل الاستخلاف لكن يعود الخليفة ويعودون معه وجوبا. So here this is in the transitional part. What happens, for example, if رفعوا برفعه قبل الاستخلاف? So let's say he lost his wudu while he went down for ruku', and he's like saying Subhanallah al-Azim, he's like, I lost my wudu. So he says, he can actually say like, Fulan, come, I lost my wudu, be the Imam. So if they came up, and they started to come up before he assigned the person behind him, like they precede him a little bit, but the Khalifa, the person he assigned anew, يعود الخليفة ويعودون معه وجوبا. He went back to the ruku'ah because it happened during the ruku'ah, so they have to do that sort of over again for it to be valid. So they go back with him. So they find him in the ruku'ah, they go back to the ruku'ah with him, even if they had raised a little bit before that. They join him in that particular place. Then he says, Sami Allahu Hamida, prayer is valid for everybody. فإن لم يعودوا لم تبطل عليهم إن كانوا قد أخذوا فرضهم مع الأول. However, if they don't do that, let's say they don't go back with the Imam, but they actually caught part of the ruku'ah before he lost his wudu or before he signed the new Imam, even in the beginning of the ruku'ah, then their prayer is valid. If they came late and didn't even catch that part, the prayer is not valid. They have to be with the new Imam. ولا يصح أن يستخلف من جاء بعد الرفع من الركوع في تلك الركعة فإن استخلف بعد قيامه للتي تليها صح ولا يصح when it's not valid أن يستخلف من جاء بعد الرفع من الركوع. So someone who's new to the prayer and he came after he comes back up from the ruku'ah and he has to assign a new imam, can't be that person. لا يصح في تلك الركعة, in that particular ركعة. فإن استخلف بعد قيامه للتي تليها صح. However, if he loses in the next rak'ah, so he made one of the rak'ahs as we said earlier, then he can be the new imam if it happens in the next rak'ah. والاستخلاف في الجمعة واجب وفي غيرها مندوب. Why? Jum'ah is fard. So to assign a new imam during Friday prayer, you have to do that because the prayer is not valid without an imam. Otherwise, it's mandub. Here, there's actually one of two options. Let's say the imam actually does lose his wudu and he's not sure. Everybody knows the rules of istikhlaf. What's going to happen? He can just say, I lost my wudu. Everyone complete on their own, which they can do. That's valid too. So as soon as he leaves, then they just complete on their own. Everybody's praying by themselves, which is fine. But that's not fine in Jum'ah, in the Friday prayer. وَيَسْتَخْلِفُ الْجَمَاعَةُ إِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَخْلِفِ الْإِمَامِ. Let's say the imam is really embarrassed. He's like, okay, I'm in sujood. And he gets up and leaves because he lost his wudu. And the jama'ah is like, it's taking a long time. And then they realize he left. They can assign a new imam. So if somebody in the front row, he says, he takes on the imamate and he says, Allahu Akbar, and they get up with him, he becomes a new imam in that case. So, يستخلف الجماعة إن لم يستخلف الإمام. He doesn't do it. وندب استخلاف الأقرب, right? The one who's closer is better than the one who has to come from the last row. ويقرأ من انتهاء قراءة الأول فإن لم يعلم ابتدأ القراءة. So if it happened during the qiyam, right, he's in the middle of the Fatiha and he leaves, then you take on where he left. If you don't remember where he started, start the Fatiha over again. And the same thing with the surah afterwards. If you don't know where he started, start another surah or the same surah from the beginning. وإن كان الخليفة مسبوقا أكمل صلاة الأول ثم قام لقضاء ما فاته وانتظرته الجماعة فإذا سلم المتم معه وأقام من فاته شيء للقضاء ما عليه والله أعلم. Now it gets tricky. So let's say إن كان مسبوقا, let's say the Khalifa, the new Imam, he joined late. So he's only made like one rak'ah and the Imam had already prayed like 3. So there's a whole jama'ah behind him that made 3 and he only made 1. So what happens now? He still has a spare to make up, even though they're done, right? So what happens? أكمل صلاة الأول. So you finish the prayer of the one before you. So he does his second rak'ah, which is the 4th. Let's say in this example for everybody else. أكمل, and he's in the tashahhud. ثم قام لقضاء ما فاته. Then he gets up to make up that which he missed. Well, what does the congregation do? انتظرته الجماعة. They sit and wait in the tashahhud position, in the julus. Because they're not allowed to leave the prayer ahead of him, because that's their imam. But at the same time, they're not going to pray 6 or 7 rak'ahs, right? They only pray 4. So they wait. فإذا سلم المتم معه, right? So then when he makes salam, then the mutim, the one who has finished his prayer, سلم معه وقام من فاته شيء من القضاء ما عليه. But if there's someone who has something they need to make up, then they make it up. So the one who's also making up doesn't make up with the imam, he makes up by himself. So he's sitting down with everybody else. And then when the imam says the salam, then the one who came even after the new imam, he gets up to make up the rest of his prayer by himself. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And just full disclosure, I've never seen this happen in my life. I don't know how often it would actually happen in your life, but these ahkam, these rulings are good to know.
If the imam already have a wudu, has no wudu from the beginning, this is up to the salah?
If he has no wudu from the beginning, but he doesn't remember until he's in the salah, he can assign a new imam.
Even has no wudu from the beginning.
But he doesn't remember, he doesn't recall.
Okay.
If he's purposefully going in without wudu, his batil and everybody else too.
Okay.
But if he's like I said, Allahu Akbar, wait a minute, and I do wudu, he doesn't remember, then he calls, wait, I don't have wudu, then he assigns a new imam. So we will stop here inshallah. Next time we start with the وفصل في النوافل والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.